We are at that time of year where I don't have to close the blinds if I don't really need to. The camera doesn't react as poorly as it did during the winter, and the cats really like the blinds being open. So I apologize for the brightness in these videos in general, but keeps the cats happy. And as you can see, there's three of them on the trees, and we're all living in harmony right now. So this is an important day. We've reached Colorado, which means also Quebec, because it's the same organization. But whether it's Quebec or it's Colorado we're talking about, doesn't matter. The greatest of all time is Joe Sakic. Good night, everybody. No. Points leader is Sakic, 1,641. He gets there by 625 goals and 1,016 assists. The 1,000 assists tells you what a good passer he was. The 625 goals tells you he was pretty good at putting the puck in the net as well. Sakic spends his entire career with this organization, and I remember when he started out, there were concerns about how much Quebec was losing and that the Nordiques were potentially ruining him, or he wouldn't be good enough when the team was good enough, and maybe they needed to move on from him if they were going to be a winner. All these ridiculous conversations we look back on years later. I can't wait to see how the conversations change as guys like Eichel, McDavid, and the young players now, Matthews, as they get older, because the conversations will change. Dale Hunter leads the team in all-time penalty minutes with 1,562. Controversial figure, no matter where he went. Dale Hunter. Power play goals, Joe Sakic, 205 power play goals as a member of the Avalanche. He was pretty good on the power play. So no matter what area you're looking at offensively, it's the Joe Sakic show, which is kind of a shame because Peter Stastny was a pretty darn good player and a great story as well. If you don't know the story of the Stastny brothers and their defection from Czechoslovakia, by all means, I telling you, look it up. It's fantastic. They were heroic in their ability to get to the NHL, and Peter was the best of the three brothers, but all three of them were pretty darn good offensively. It's a shame they didn't come over earlier, in that I think we would have been talking about them in much higher regard. And if he'd played his entire career as a member of the Nordiques, and if he'd started at age 18 or 19, he may very well have threatened Sakic's point totals at 1641. Nathan MacKinnon, you have to mention Nathan MacKinnon when you're talking about the Avalanche, because he is one of the most talented players the team's ever had. He's not going to threaten Joe Sakic anytime soon in any of these categories. He's not going to threaten, in my eyes anyways, to be seen as necessarily being better than Sakic, but if he wins a couple of Hart trophies, he will be in that conversation, and then we can have that argument at another time. Michel Goulet, one of the best goal scorers that the franchise ever saw. Peter Forsberg, one of the best overall players. And again, when you're talking about Sakic, Forsberg, Stastny, MacKinnon, you can make an argument for any of the four, in my eyes, as being the most talented player to wear either a Nordique or Avalanche jersey. And Milan Hajduk. Milan Hajduk came over. He wasn't a kid when he came over. And honestly, he put together a pretty decent career and a pretty long career as well. He's another one that if he had come over at age 18 or 19 and played the whole way through, we might have him higher on the list, and he might be more regarded in terms of his time in the NHL and just his place in hockey history. So those are the forwards I can throw into that group. There are defensemen you can put on that list as well from their time, but it really has been a list dominated by their best forwards. The Avs, pretty fantastic. I can't wait till Cale Makar's on this list the next time I talk about this, say 5 years down the road. Wins leader, get into goaltenders. Patrick Roy is their leaders. 262 wins, save percentage. He has a 918. Career as a member of the Abs. Shots against, 12,994. Shutouts, Patrick Roy leads there as well with 37. So Patrick Roy is the best goaltender the Abs ever had. And it's funny because when they had him, and he was so darn good for so long, and then he retires, it made it impossible for Budaj or Abbotsford to ever be able to live up to that expectation. You just can't be as good. So as much as they babied David Abbotsford to get him ready for that job, he's not going to be able to be Raw. Peter Budaj can't be Raw. Nobody can. Varlamov gets an honorable mention here as well, and a noteworthy, probably number 2 on their all-time goaltenders. Dan Bouchard in the 80s for the Nordiques was excellent, and Ron Tugnut was a very good goaltender on a very, very historically bad team in Quebec. You get a standing ovation from the Boston Garden and you're the visiting goaltender, that tells you just how good you are and how bad your team might be, because the Boston Garden doesn't just give standing ovations for anybody on the visiting teams. Their overall best team, you know what? I went with the 95-96 crew. Coming out of 94-95, the Avalanche had been the Nordiques. The Nordiques looked like they were finally ready to win a championship in 95. And I thought, as a fan of the Nordiques at the time, all right, they're going to knock out Montreal. They're going to go to a Stanley Cup. And then it just didn't happen. And they missed the playoffs in 95. It was 94 that I thought that was going to happen, that they were going to go on this big run. And, of course, 94 went to the Rangers. This was a team that was geared to win. And as soon as they went to Colorado, and Montreal had a problem with Patrick Roy, this was the perfect marriage indeed. Now, if they'd stayed in Quebec, Patrick Roy doesn't get traded to the Nordiques. As insane as some of the decisions that were made by the Montreal Canadiens in 95-96, there's no way they would have traded Patrick Roy just to Quebec City. There's no chance that would have happened. He would have gone somewhere else. 95-96 Cup team included names like Claude Lemieux, Valeri Kamensky. Kamensky was another one who came over while he was NHL ready. Again, if he'd come over earlier, his stats would have been much better, and he might be considered one of the better Russian players to have come over. Sandis Ozolinsh in the list of defensemen that they've had that were pretty darn good as well. And Mike Keane. Mike Keane, the forgotten piece from the Patrick Roy trade. It wasn't just picking up Roy, it was what Keane did for them up front, and the stability and leadership he provided to that team. Really kind of invaluable. So I went with that as being their best team. I understand 2000-2001, they win the Stanley Cup. They have Ray Bourque on the blue line, and they had 118 points that year. That was a pretty darn good team as well. So I get it. I understand that there are a couple of different ways to go about this. Now, most wins as a franchise against Edmonton, 78. Not a team that won a whole lot as Quebec, but because they've been in the East, they've been in the West, they haven't played any one team a lot, comparatively speaking, with others. Points percentage, Columbus. Colorado Avalanche likes playing Columbus. Apparently, they have a 697 points percentage against Columbus. Goals for, Edmonton shows up again there. They've scored 550 goals against the Oilers. Goals for per game against Pittsburgh, they've scored 3.87. Goals against per game, they've allowed 2.16 against Columbus. So again, best goals against is against a team that came along in recent expansions. Not really a surprise there. But Columbus, points percentage and goals against per game, they like to play the Columbus Blue Jackets. Notable captains. Landeskog, who's been captain for quite a while now. He's likely to be captain the whole time he's a Colorado Avalanche member. Adam Foote, noteworthy in that he took over after Sakic left. Sakic retires in 2009. He was captain from 92 until 2009. He was captain for quite a while. Peter Stastny and Mark Tardif. Mark Tardif, who came over from the WHA with the Quebec Nordiques, and Tardif was the best scorer in the WHA. And he's one that, while I've talked about others, if they'd played earlier, if Tardif had played his entire career as a National Hockey League player, he would be seen as in higher regard as well. This is where the NHL not really saying anything about WHA stats drives me nuts. Because Mark Tardif was a very good player. Longest playoff streak, that's from 1995 to 2006. That's 11 seasons. And they were pretty darn good in there. So yeah, 95 they did make the playoffs. Yeah, so that was the year. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because it was Pierre Pagé was behind the bench. Anyway, that's beside the point. Gotta stop getting on all these tangents in all these videos. It's not going to happen. There's long-time viewers or even short-time viewers going, it's not going to happen. You're all about your tangents. Thus, truck guy. Coach, I went with Mark Crawford. Michel Bergeron was a coach of the Quebec Nordiques for a long time. He was pretty good. But Mark Crawford was there in 95, 96, and he took over a team that won the Stanley Cup. So while they haven't had coaches that have lasted a tremendously long time, in Colorado overall, I went with him as being their best coach. Could have gone with Hartley, but I went with Crawford. Best GM, Joe Sakic. I didn't even have to look up their GMs. I just put Joe Sakic. Sakic was dead and buried because he wasn't able to trade Matt Duchene. When is he going to trade Matt Duchene? This is ridiculous. Trade Matt Duchene. Then he trades him, and it's brilliant. The trade has turned out to be really sort of fantastic. And so Gerard becomes a member of the team, and they pick up some pretty decent picks. And yeah, the Duchesne deal, to me, makes Joe Sakic the best GM they've had. And some of the other trades he's made as well. I really liked the Kadri deal last summer, so I don't see any way to argue that it's not Joe Sakic for me. He was an Av or a Nord. So either remember the Avalanche or the Quebec Nordiques. In blue are the guys who are they were Nordiques, and in greenish blue, in this color, the tealish color, aqua, is Avs. Dave Andrechuk, 14 games as an Avalanche member during the regular season anyways. Daniel Briere, if you don't remember that Briere was a member of the Avalanche, now you do. Theron Fleury played for a couple of teams that it may not be that memorable he played for. Colorado's on the list. Yari Curry finished his career as a member of the Avalanche, just the 5 goals that year. That was his last year in the NHL. Pierre Turgeon was a member of the Avalanche as well. The debate about whether or not Turgeon belongs in the Hall of Fame. His career was in Colorado, so yeah. Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne. For those of us who remember that season where Selanne and Kariya took less money to go to Colorado to win a Stanley Cup, we remember that it was a disaster. But for fans who may just know Selanne and Kariya playing together as members of the Ducks, it may come as a bit of a surprise to know that they had that disastrous run with Colorado. And it was a disaster. It was so bizarre that they added these guys for dirt cheap, comparatively speaking, with what they could have made elsewhere. And it just didn't work. Now, surprising Nordiques, Guy Lafleur. Guy Lafleur, who was a Montreal Canadian through and through, to see him in a Quebec jersey, it just didn't look great. Didn't look great to see him as a Ranger either, so don't be surprised when you see him on the Rangers list, as he was a Ranger. But yeah, him as a member of the Nordiques just didn't fit at all, considering he was a Montreal Canadian. John Tonelli, we've seen him on the board before. Tonelli was a member of the Nordiques briefly. And Wendell Clark. Wendell Clark was a member of the Nordiques. I remember Don Cherry losing his mind that Wendell Clark had been traded, how horrible this was. And I believe that was the trade that brought Matt Sundin to Toronto. So, Wendell Clark, not that memorable as a Nordique unless you collected hockey cards in the early 90s, in which case you're like, I remember having his hockey card with the Nordiques. And I would say that. That's why I'm saying it here. So there you go. The all-time greatest of the Colorado Avalanche / Quebec Nordiques. But most of their history's been as a member of the Colorado Avalanche. And, for better or for worse, the Nordiques part does tend to sort of fade. And I know for fans who want to see Quebec come back, it is a great sadness. I don't see them coming back. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.